Good afternoon. I'm Moria Bowman, your BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Career Day Student Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Today we are featuring two exciting STEM professionals on Career Day. First, you will meet Miss Krystle McClain, a professional engineer in the state of Maryland. She will share a day in her life of her career along with her journey through college, mentors who guided her along the way, and she'll give us leadership advice. We are also excited about our guest, Mr. Larry Laws, the Director of Utility Training at Baltimore Gas and Electric. He will give us insight into careers at BGE, along with education requirements and the potential salaries we can make in those careers. Now over to Savannah to introduce our next guest. Our first guest. Over to you.
Hi. Okay. Oh.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry.
No worries. I can go ahead and start my presentation if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sounds good. Thank you. So, hello, everybody. My name is Krystle McClain, and I am here to tell you a little bit about me and my career. So, I have a presentation, so we can go ahead and get that started. So, to understand my entire journey through STEM, it's really important to understand where I come from. So, I'm first generation American. My parents are from Liberia. And so, I have a father who was really big into all things STEM and really analytical. And then I have a mom who just has a heart for service and a heart for other people. And with those parents, I managed to figure out, you know what, I like STEM, I love chemistry, I love math, and I also like helping people. So, how can I do that? And so I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, go Terps, and obtained a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemical engineering. I also have a Master's of Engineering in Environmental, and I'll talk a little bit about how I even got to that point to decide to go back for my master's. Because I'll be honest with you, when I first started my chemie degree or ended my chemie degree, I decided I am not going back to college, right? So after that, I did 4 years of private industry work as a consultant and a contractor. The contractor part really started to build me into becoming familiar with environmental. And since then, since 2008, I've been a government civil servant, both in the city sector from DC Department of the Environment and various other locations, primarily in the Department of Defense, starting with Department of the Army, going to Department of the Air Force, the Air National Guard. Then I went over to Department of the Navy and lived in Japan for a little while, which was kind of cool. And then also decided, you know what, I'm not ready to come back home to Maryland, so I'm going to go ahead and stop in Hawaii. And I worked for the Navy over in Hawaii for a little while. And my current position, after only about a month, is working for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency out of Region 5 in Chicago, Illinois. So I would say when I kind of think about my first job and my biggest challenge, because, you know, when we get to this level in our careers, mid-level supervisory, it's always like, okay, this must have been very easy for you, but that was totally not the case. My first job out of college was with a consulting firm. And I was entry level. And the thing about it is that from my bachelor's, I have a chemie degree. During the summer, during a women in engineering program, I fell in love with the environment. I had a geologist as my mentor. And that's why I went towards environmental. Thing is, chemical engineers, we don't necessarily take a lot of electives in environmental. So I didn't really know a lot. But, God saw fit that I would be able to have a career in environmental. And I was hired in December 2004. And I was also fired not long after that, in my birthday week in 2005. And that was definitely very challenging for me at the time. And as engineers, we always talk about the moment of failure, right? And my moment of failure was when my boss's boss pulled me into the office and decided, hey, I'm going to give you 30 days to kind of figure this out. You may not necessarily be a good fit. And obviously, after 30 days, I was let go. And it hurt, especially coming out of college and being an engineer. You're thinking, oh, I have this, I'm going to do well, and only to be fired. And, he left me with parting words that essentially said, um, you might be better for the government. And it was kind of a sting at that time back then to work for the government. But, one of the things that was really big for me was my lesson learned, which was to ask questions. What I found myself doing was I didn't know a lot, right? Coming from chemie and deciding to go over into an environmental, and I found myself shrinking. And because of that, I had a lot of questions, but didn't want to bother anybody. And obviously, that didn't necessarily work well in the workplace. So that was my biggest challenge. And from that, again, learning how to ask questions. And it also prompted me to go back to obtain my master's. And that's why I went back to school to get my master's, so I can figure out what this whole environmental thing is all about. And during my career journey, I've come across a lot of mentors. I would say that Mr. Tim Bridges, right now, who works for CNIC Command Naval Installations Command out of the Washington AVR as the executive director, I met him when I was working for the Air Force at the Pentagon. And essentially, we had a one-on-one. It was a brief conversation. Well, I shouldn't say brief. It was probably a 30-minute conversation. And to obtain 30 minutes from a senior exec at that time was really, really just unimaginable, only because I just talked to my supervisor and I told him I need a mentor. And what came out of that was strictly like him connecting me with Mr. Bridges. And Mr. Bridges and I sat down. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, what? I don't know what I want to do. I'm working at the Pentagon. I'm doing policy oversight. I'm not quite certain this is what I want to do. And he basically told me, okay, here's the thing. You need to go back and obtain your professional engineer's license. And as a chemie, we weren't really told to do that in undergrad. Thought about it because when I was working in my first job, a lot of the environmental folks and civil engineering folks had their PE, but I never thought I'm going to sit back and do another test for approximately 8 hours to get this professional engineer's license. It just wasn't something I was interested in doing. But he told me you need to go back and get it because in order to move up the ladder as it pertains to your career, you want to have the credentials and you do not want the selecting officials to have a reason to not allow you to obtain promotion. And that was really helpful for me. And I studied and I, obviously obtained my professional engineer's license. Also, he told me, you may want to go overseas for a little while and expand your territory. And with that, I decided to get a job in Japan. And I applied and I did it. And, it was a remarkable experience. Also, working in Hawaii as well. And so if it wasn't for Mr. Bridges, I probably would never have obtained my professional engineer's license, nor would I have decided to go overseas. And those were definitely invaluable experiences. So what do I do as an environmental engineer? I am not necessarily on the technical side, but I always say once an engineer, always an engineer. My day in the life is a lot of meetings. I'm gonna be honest with you. And that's because I'm mid-level management. And a lot of times we are focusing on policy and procedures and regulations. I'm also a supervisor. But working for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the main mission is to protect human health and the environment. And out of Region 5, as you can see, we serve the Great Lakes states essentially, and also 35 tribes. And it's really important because my program area, National Environmental Policy Act, I provide oversight for all major federal actions. So that means anytime a new federal agency wants to do anything, they have to essentially write a document that describes the environmental impacts overall for the act. That can be doing a new transit system, that can be doing the military building out a new dry dock, which is what I was doing in Hawaii, having oversight over that. That can be Air Force changing their airspace training, anything that's done by a federal agency, Department of Energy, all those types of things, they have to do an environmental assessment. And it starts with us. It starts with our office, in which they come to our office and they write the document. And we pretty much tell them whether or not they're doing a sufficient job and providing that level of information in detail. And another part of my job is also to advance environmental justice, which is the real reason why I decided to go to the Environmental Protection Agency. Our current administration, President Biden, he is very, very big on equity, and he wants to do it through an environmental way. And remember, I told you my mom is a person who has heart for people and service. And with that comes me being able to help communities. And so we partner with various communities. We are building relationships. We are trying to get out there and to make our names great as far as the EPA, and let them know, like, as an agency, we really do care. And even though there was a lot of disproportionate impacts to, all types of pollution in the past, we are really trying to right wrongs. And that's also another aspect of my career that I do as well. So a lot of times I'm in meetings, having conversations, figuring out exactly who's going where, if people are going to Flint, if people are going to East Chicago, if we're going to coordinate with some tribes, and just have certain conversations and discussion points. One thing I take as far as my greatest skills and what I would impart upon anybody who's going in to be an engineer is that you have to learn the art of 360-degree communication. That is talking to those who may not necessarily be at your same level. If you have employees, any sort of mentees, anybody who's coming in who may not necessarily be in your shop, people you have to work with. And working for the military, a lot of times I would have to work with the blue collar field, and they're important just as much. And so it's learning how to talk with them and explain something that's so highly technical and distill it down so that they understand the main points of what you're doing. You also have to become familiar in talking to your peers, those who are across the aisle who can help you in order to achieve whatever goals and tasks that you might want to partake in and achieve. And also your leadership. I think people often think that in jobs you only talk to your leadership, but really you need to talk to everybody. But keeping leadership abreast of all the pertinent issues that are coming their way, so they can have your back and support you as well. But you have to become a people person. That's really big in terms of the skill set that I would say that has helped me tremendously along the way in my career, is just learning how to get out of my own way and talk to all different types of people and having a good demeanor overall. I would say I'm a servant leader. I've kind of touched on this already. I am big on service. I'm a government civil service. I could go into private industry and likely do, a lot more, or, make a lot more money or whatever have you. But for me, my heart is for the people, the citizens. I work for the people of the United States and taxpayers. So I'm really big on servant leadership and recognizing, like, even though I'm a supervisor, it really is imperative that I understand that the people come first. And that's what I put to the forefront of everything that I do every day. And last but not least, I think remaining inquisitive in nature. Again, that was the first lesson learned from my job that I was fired from out of undergrad. But just having, remaining, curious about everything, that really does help as far as growth, because you don't necessarily want to become stagnant in your own area. So those are the main skills that I would say: communication, being a servant leader. Even if you have the title, you're still there for the people. And then also remaining very curious and inquisitive at all times. So when I think about my career and what I intend to do over the next few years, obviously I just started a new position. I have about 15 more years left in the federal government. But I will likely be retired by 2040, honestly, and traveling the world. As you can see, I enjoy doing that. And I'm looking forward to it. So I'm setting myself up for success in that way now. Also, I definitely have a part as a hiring manager, as somebody who looks at resumes and interviews folks in supporting Black women in STEM specifically. I have a business that I am starting called STEM Sync, in which I really want to prep young ladies, Black women who are coming out of college out their last couple of years. I think it's really critical for them to know what the workplace entails. And then also their first few years in their career. I think a lot of women get intimidated being in a very, just not diverse environment, unfortunately. And I really want to make sure that they know that they can show up as their true selves and do exactly what they're, needing to do as far as their careers. And so hopefully by that time, I will be someone who has propelled into that area, built this company up to be able to provide that service so that we can see more people who look like me in these STEM leadership positions. And so now I am ready for the Q&A, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation. So thank you again for allowing me to tell you a little bit about myself and the day in my life as an environmental engineer.
Thank you, Miss McClain, for sharing your career. That really inspired me and really gave me some things to think about as I'm a freshman in college. So, starting off, we have some questions for you.
Mhm.
When you were in high school, did you ever imagine that this would be your life?
No, not at all. I never thought that I would ever live in a different country. I never thought that I would be in upper management or mid management to going towards upper management. I never thought I'd even live in Hawaii at all. I think that in high school, I just knew what I knew at the time, which is that I like chemistry and I like math and I wanted to make money. I think that was really big. And so to be in a place where I have such a diverse background working for the military and also now working for the EPA, which I think is almost probably every environmental person's kind of strive eventually to get to the work for the EPA. Never in my mind would I have imagined that I would be where I am today at all.
How did you stay motivated to continue to pursue your career goals?
I stay motivated, and I touched on this a little bit by remaining curious about different things. Every time I found another area of environmental that I was interested in, I went ahead and decided, you know what, I'm going to put my best foot forward to do some training, to network with individuals, and eventually obtain a position that would allow me the opportunity to do exactly what I was interested in. So I'm always a person who just likes to learn. I think learning, continuing to be a person who likes to learn is really valuable in this space, especially in STEM, because things change so much so rapidly. That's exactly what keeps me motivated all the time.
That's a good motivation.
Mhm.
What life advice would you offer to students who are just starting college, like me?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I always think like, what would I tell myself if I could go back? And I honestly would say enjoy college. I think in STEM and in our majors, we get so kind of pigeonholed into making certain that we're studying all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And you really have to know that this is a good time for you to explore who you are, what else is out there. And you're no longer in high school in your little community, but just enjoy college and just enjoy being somebody who is kind of just a wealth of information and easy to talk to other people and engage with others. I also would say with that, in order to enjoy college, you have to have a good work-life balance and start that now, because once you get to my age and where I am in my career, I'm still struggling to figure out what a good work-life balance is. Had I known back in undergrad that I was really optimal with my knowledge between the hours of like 9 and 12, I would have scheduled a lot more of my classes around that time so that I could go in, learn what I had to learn, and then in the afternoons I would study. And then in the evenings, I would, socialize and do those things. So get out, do different things. In undergrad, I joined a sorority and it was a great experience, and it really pulled me out of just focusing only on my STEM. So this is a time in your life that you're only going to get this time. So really make it your own and make sure you have a good structured work-life balance.
What sorority did you join?
I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
Ooh, okay.
Mhm.
Um, Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Um, if you could do it all over again, what would you change about your school, career, or other life choices?
If I could do it all over again, I likely would have been in the federal government earlier. When I was in my fifth year, because let me add this: I took my time to get my engineering degrees. Okay, I am not one of those people who could take 18, 21 credits or whatever credits of full science and math. And I also work part time, and I had the opportunity to become an intern at Federal Energy Regulatory Commission (FERC). And at the time, I didn't really recognize the value in the opportunity that I was given. And I wish that once I transitioned out of college, that I went right into the federal government. I was actually being offered such, and I just couldn't see it at the time because, again, I was like, oh, private industry, private industry. But I really do wish that I would have gone into the federal government a little bit sooner.
Would you have wanted to work in the same branch or um oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I would have wanted to. The thing about the internship, it was definitely more of I would say, a paper exercise where they had me kind of filing papers, doing things, doing database work, et cetera, et cetera. I was actually in the National Environmental Policy Act branch, like doing exactly what I'm doing now. So it's kind of a full circle moment a little bit. But it's like, man, if I would have known this a long time ago and explored this a long time ago, I probably could be a whole, nationwide subject matter expert in this, but everything is done in good timing. So I definitely would have stayed within the same division and branch.
How did you like your internship?
It was good. It was really good in terms of helping me to open up beyond what it's going to be like in college. Because I think in college you just go to class and that's it. But there's really no good preparation for transition out of the workforce. It's like you get your degree, and next thing you know, you're in at a job, and it's a different experience, right? Coming out of college, so the internship just allowed me to provide that structure I talked about earlier with the work life balance. So I did enjoy it. And I enjoy meeting the people because people were really, really passionate about wanting to ensure that they were looking at the environment whenever we were doing any type of big energy projects like liquefied natural gas and things of that nature.
Were some of the people rude or like mean? Were you
No, people weren't rude, people weren't mean. They were actually extremely welcoming and, understanding of me being somebody who's new. Again, at the time I didn't know how to put myself out there in public and in like a public environment or a work environment. So I felt that I was a little bit too reserved. They wanted to help. They wanted to really see me do well. And again, had I realized it, they really wanted me to do well so that I could join them, right? But I didn't make that connection at the time. I didn't have the confidence at the time to really see that, but they were really, really nice.
well, it's good you were able to develop that confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What bringing you to this question? What was the most challenging moment in your career?
So I talked about one of them, which is when I was fired from my job. I would say the other challenge was when I was living in Japan. Being a supervisor or the environmental director for a base, like you have a lot of responsibilities in terms of making sure that the ships are, meeting the mission and doing what they have to do, and we're also being good stewards of the country of the host country of Japan that we're in. And one of the toughest moments I would say is I was transitioning into becoming the director for the base. And we ran into an issue where our testing was telling us, our drinking water testing out of the school system was telling us that there was lead in the pipes that were exceeding a certain level. It was a tough time in my career because I had to learn really quickly what are the drinking water standards? What exactly are our headquarters office in DC? What are their guidelines? What are they hoping that we do? What are they hoping that we are able to deal with? And also there's a people factor, right? So there's the schools, you have kids and students and parents. And there was a lot of meetings with the folks in DC. There were a lot of meetings with our regional level folks. And then there were a lot of meetings with the base commander, and having to really say, sorry, we recognize that this is a deficiency in our system right now, but we're going to do well in order to work that out. That was a challenge. It was new. It was having to deal with different people. That's when I really learned about risk communication, which is a really critical point. And so for me, that was another challenge, is having to get spun up on a topic I wasn't familiar with, and also just engaging with, again, different types of people at a different level.
What motivated what motivated you to continue advancing your education?
The biggest motivation was me just not knowing exactly what I was doing as a chemical engineer coming out of undergrad and going into environmental. And so I did, I obtained my master's to fully understand the depth of environmental from a technical perspective. And then again, any kind of training that I can do, I continuously do it because the world is forever evolving.
In college, what was your favorite class?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because I have to think about that because college, my engineering classes were pretty tough. There was actually a course that we took called ethics. All of us have to take that course,
Part of
right?
course.
Oh yeah, you have to take an ethics course. And it was from a frame of ethics from a engineering perspective, right? We're talking about kind of ethics as it relates to you becoming maybe a professional engineer and signing off on things. But we had to write a paper in our ethics course. And I wrote about the fact that out of a class of maybe 20 something plus people, there were only 3 Black folks. And it was
That's
just kind of,
that's the same with my class.
okay,
There's usually like 3 to 5 Black people in
that's
my
it.
class. Yeah.
That's yeah, so that's it. And so to be in college and recognizing that it was really crucial. And I was just grateful that I had a class where I could talk about this type of stuff. And yeah, we're talking about ethics to the public, but we also need to talk about ethics within our actual career field, right? And in the STEM world, what does that look like? Why are we not as diverse as we should be in our courses? And what does it do to someone who's sitting in these courses and may not necessarily have the same capacity or aptitude or educational background, but they have the choice to come to college? Is that a trap? Is that something that needs to be kind of looked at a little bit better when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion at these, well, I was going to Maryland, so it was a predominantly white institution. But that was my favorite class, I would say.
That's good. Um, I'm probably gonna have to take ethics next semester, so that's
Okay.
a good heads up.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. And how do you handle setbacks?
Oh, great question. Because they come often. Even with me transitioning into this new position, I'm just kind of like, woo, I'm way over my head with this one. But it is what it is. I'm here for a reason. I think understanding that it is a setback and stepping into that really makes a difference. I think not trying to ignore it as if it doesn't, exist, recognizing it and kind of figuring out, okay, what's going to help me to propel. A big thing for me is my faith, right? So me praying a lot, getting centered, and talking to other people about the setback and asking for help. So that really does help as well.
What do you think are the most interesting technical advancements?
Working in the environmental sector, I would say one of the most interesting ones would be the health impact assessments that we're doing in order to identify any kind of disparities in certain areas when it comes to health implications and impacts. There's a lot of technology and GIS work being done now in order to map this a lot better. And so I think that's a huge help in terms of assessing any kind of environmental issues with pollution and preventing kind of issue, any kind of health issues in the future as a result of all types of pollution issues.
Okay, thank you. Um, think. Thank you, Miss McClain. We look forward to meeting you in person at the BEYA conference in Baltimore in February 2024. You helped a lot with when you answered the questions with my own personal life since I'm starting college and just like trying to figure stuff out as a college student. So I say thank you.
You're so welcome.
Now, before we learn about a past STEM inventor, we'll have a word from our sponsor, Lockheed Martin.
I work at Lockheed Martin as a cybersecurity systems engineer, and I've been at Lockheed for 19 years. The role of cybersecurity engineering has a tremendous impact on the mission to deliver secure systems to our customers. I have 3 children. My kids are the center of my universe. I would not be able to continue working effectively as a working parent if it had not been for the flexibility in our work schedule and the flexibility of our leaders to help me exercise a flexible work schedule. One of the reasons why I've been at Lockheed Martin for 19 years is because I think the culture and the values that we demonstrate really reflect my own personal values. Performing with excellence, acting with integrity, those are steadfast values that we talk about day to day. I have seen great changes in the diversity within our company. 19 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of women in leadership, so the few that we had were highly coveted. Today, I'm proud to say that we see quite a few women in leadership roles. The advice that I would provide to young women and girls who are interested in STEM is go for it. You can do it. Don't let anyone stop you.
That was exciting learning about Mrs. McClain's career and STEM background. Now, I would like to take you on a little STEM journey through the world of inventions. Have you ever heard of George Robert Carruthers? George Robert Carruthers was a well-respected member of the space science community. He was known for inventing the first and the only astronomical instrument sent to the moon, which was an image converter in short wavelengths. This invention was a lunar surface camera that ended up being used in the Apollo 16 mission in 1972. George was as young as 10 years old when he built his own telescope at home with the money he was earning as a delivery boy. Although he was one of the few people of color competing in these science fairs at his school, teachers were positive of his intelligence and supported him on his path to furthering his education. Carruthers graduated and studied at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana campus. He sharpened his knowledge in the aerospace engineering and astronomy and earned his bachelor's in physics in 1961. This was the same year that he started to work for the Naval Research Laboratory. During his time at the Naval Research Lab, he patented his UV telescope, and it was able to examine the Earth's atmosphere and see stars, nebulae, and galaxies for the first time. I want to challenge you. Are you focused? Do you take the time to explore a subject, topic, activity to its fullest? Well, that is how you could describe George Robert Carruthers, and that is what it takes to be an inventor. His success wasn't by accident or about him being in the right place at the right time. He was focused, passionate about STEM, and didn't stray off course, which is all you need to be successful. Next month, we will share another inventor who changed the way that we use technology today. Students, we hope all of you are enjoying learning more about STEM careers at today's BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Career Day, streamed live from STEM City, USA. Let's take a quick commercial break to learn more about STEM City, USA.
What if you could build your own city? A place where every child can find nurturing people to help them achieve their full potential. A place where every adult can access job training support, where health education is abundant, where social justice ruled the land. A place without limitations. Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City, USA. It is what every city should be. A safe and trusted community where you find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond. STEM City is unlike anything you have ever experienced. It is a digital twin of the world around you, only better. STEM City is about energy and soul renewal. It is more than a digital world. You can almost feel the power of live cultural events, music, and theater. STEM City promises a better future for children, with caring mentors and hands-on activities, with dedicated tutors to support our youth. STEM City is your passport to a healthy lifestyle, with weekly events addressing our community's many issues. STEM City is your financial well-being, with helpful information on wealth management, career advancement, job training, and so much more. STEM City is the community you deserve. It is the city where your dreams can come true. STEM City USA, a place in the sky that is accessible to all who reach for the stars.
That was STEM City USA, our 2D metaverse. Would you like to join us in building the metaverse by participating in the STEM City USA Hackathon? Our hackathon is where you will explore new ways of doing business using the metaverse. Last month, we shared more about the upcoming AI-powered library that will be opened in STEM City USA in December 2023. Please don't forget to visit stemcityusa.com and enter the Education and Discovery Building. Then enter the library to sign up for your own digital library card. Next month, we are hosting from the Women of Color STEM Conference in Detroit, Michigan. The pre-college students from Detroit will get to experience metaverse technology, AR, VR, XR, iRacing, esports, drone building, workshops, and more. Make sure you tune in to see the latest technology. Are you ready to learn about STEM cities are you ready to learn about STEM careers in the gas and electric industry? Today, we are joined by Mr. Larry Laws, and he is the director at Baltimore Gas and Electric. Welcome, Mr. Laws.
Hey, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing perfect.
Hello.
Hello.
I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us about what your job entails at Baltimore Gas and Electric. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Okay. So just to introduce myself first, I'd like to tell you where I've come from and where I am at now so you can understand my journey. So I'm born and raised in West Baltimore, came up through, our city public school system. But my high school was a technical high school. So I studied electrical engineering there during high school. Honestly, how I got into that was kind of like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But once I got into it, I actually loved it. So all 4 years there, I wanted to continue that. So I went to Morgan, right? Graduated, went to Morgan University, but only stayed for like a semester. I wasn't ready for college. I was more into partying and other stuff, and I wound up dropping out. So kind of stuck. I said, you know what? Let me try something different. So I went to the military, where there I was a electronic technician and a paratrooper. So still continuing on my journey, around with electronics. That really helped me understand what my life was going to be about, as far as from a career perspective. So once I got out of the military, I started. I joined a company doing power measurement equipment. Stayed there for about 5 years. Then got laid off. The company moved to Cleveland. Um, they did ask me to move to Cleveland, but I didn't want to go. I wanted to be here. I'd already traveled around the world, so I didn't want to do it again. So I wound up going to a company called Northrop Grumman. Worked for them in the engineering services, field services, traveling around the world, working on radar systems, as well as nuclear propulsion systems. So I've been on every Nimitz aircraft carrier, every fast attack sub, working on the propulsion system. But as you can imagine, traveling around the world, and at that time I had a family. It wasn't really conducive to a family life. So I started looking for other jobs. So I found BGE, or Baltimore Gas and Electric, where I said, you know what, Baltimore sounds very local. I won't be traveling. So I wound up working there. I started as a technician, and I started as a technician, and then really was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, Started back in school, got my engineering degree. After I finished my engineering degree, I said maybe I'll go back to Northrop Grumman to be an engineer. But BG really treated me well. I had people that invested in me, people that saw more than I saw in myself. People started talking about leadership in other places within BGE. So I stayed at BGE. Wound up becoming the supervisor in the relay and control area, so system protection area, which is a very high technical field within the utility industry. So then once I finished my engineering degree, I'm gonna wind up getting an MBA from Loyola. After the MBA, I wound up going into got promoted to a manager in engineering in our real time analysis area, which was a really fun place because we looked at the power quality on the system and all of the different problems that was happening on the system. And my engineers and myself came up with solutions for those problems. At that point, I was rotated back into the field organization as a manager. Stayed there for about a year, 7 months. Then was promoted to senior manager, which is a completely different realm. I wound up going to manage a service center of overhead linemen, the people in the bucket trucks that go up in the air, which was totally different. Um, it was fun. It wasn't STEM, but what I learned there was how to deal with problems as they arise. As an engineer and as a manager, I like to look at plans, come up with a strategic plan to how to fix things. As soon as I had it, I pulled out this plan. A storm hit, the lights were out. We had to achieve. Next thing you know, I balled that strategy up and threw it away. So I learned how to think on my feet in that role. Then I went on to another area that was more bringing on a MDS system, a mobile dispatch system, an IT project. Stayed there for 2 years, and then I was promoted into the director of distribution system operations, which is the real time operations of the system, which was a very, very, very dynamic role. So every storm, every outage, everything that happened on the system, I was engaged in. So that was really fun. Now today, my role today is utility training. So we train all of the field employees, whether it be underground folks that work on the underground cables, overhead folks that work on the power lines, meter technicians. We train all of that out at our White Marsh Training Center. From a day in a life today, it's much like the previous presenter. Is that it's really around a whole bunch of meetings, thinking about strategy, how we're going to really attack training, and how we can get training better, and be able to train today's students. Today's students are nowhere not like yesterday's students. More technically savvy. We have more technology available at our fingertips, so we can actually train people better. Do I like meetings all the time? No, but I do like having to deal with problems and be able to sit at the table and be able to attack them.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, what type of degree is required for what you pursued in STEM?
So for my role now, really they look for either an engineering degree, mainly engineering degree or business degree, but some type of degree at the director level because of the fact of what you have to think about strategy. You have to be able to deal with real world problems. You have to be able to think analytically as well.
Mm. Okay, thank you. What gas and electric careers are in high demand?
Um, so there is a graphic that I like to show to kind of tell you. So if you look at this graphic, right, you look at yesterday's grid versus tomorrow's grid. So you see, let's start with the yesterday's grid. You see in the generation space that's not owned by BGE, that's owned by another company called Constellation or other generators. That's where everything is made. So either by nuclear, by wind, by hydro, by solar. Once they make the energy, it has to go somewhere, right? So we call these transmission lines. So those big towers that you see on the highway with those big wires, they're transmission lines. They're usually like 500 kV, kilovolts, 230 kilovolts, 110 kilovolts, so very high voltage. Then we take that to a substation where it starts to get stepped down to a usable voltage, usually like 13,000 volts, and they go on those wood poles that you see, and that's where it starts going to either other substations or either to your home, right? So you see those great cans that are on your home. Those cans are transformers, pole top transformers that step it down to like that 110 or 240 that goes into your house. So just to give you a graphic there, tomorrow's grid is more around like electrification. There's bills that have been passed that has really talked about decarbonization, so getting rid of gas, right? So right now you have your stove that is gas, your oven that is gas, your hot water heater that is gas. So now they want to get rid of the carbon footprint so we can have a better environment. So that moves more to electrification. So that's going to bring on, we have to build more infrastructure because electrification is going to bring on, like, the Teslas that you see out there. You start seeing, if we get rid of gas, we're going to have heat pumps instead of furnaces, and also other electronics or electrical items that we need to live off of. So, what are in high demand? Really, everything in the utility industry because of the fact that we have to build, like just for instance, for BGE's territory, we're estimating we have to build another 200 substations, right? That's that piece that's in the middle. We have to build another 200. We also have to have power lines that's going to have to be, put in place so we can move that power around. Also, undergrounding as well. So, we need people, we need engineers that's going to be able to design it from a substation perspective, from a distribution perspective, from a civil engineering perspective, from an environmental space, because we also touch environmental. We also need technicians and mechanics. So that's in the blue collar space, to go out and actually turn wrenches to build this stuff. So if you're ready for the utility industry, we're open for business. We're hiring at a rapid rate because we have to get ready for electrification.
Okay, I see. Thank you. What is the salary ranges for these careers?
Yeah. So salary ranges. So I'll start with the engineering area first. So engineers, coming straight out of school, because it all talks about your experience and also your credentials. Like you saw, the former presenter had a PE, so that does come with a salary increase too. So coming out of college, you'll be an associate engineer because you'll have less than 2 years experience. You'll probably be around 70, 75,000, and that's with the bonuses that come with that because we do have a bonus structure. And then once you have over 2 years, you'll move into what we call what is just like called a engineer or a general engineer. And then that'll be around like the 85 to 90,000. And then once you have, I think it's like 6 or 7 years of experience, you move into the senior engineer space, which is around 110, 115. I think it tops out around like 120. And then you have the PEs, the professional engineers, and they are around like 140.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I see. Would you say that being an engineer is an easy field to get involved in?
No, just like the previous presenter, right? You really have to love what you do, right? Because nothing is like really fast. Because you have to look at it's, and I'm going to talk about the utility industry. You have to really be engineering your your designs by what's going to be happening tomorrow. So like right now, we have to look at electrification. So you have to really sit back and look and say, you know what, how is it going to happen tomorrow? What are we going to need for tomorrow? So you have to build your system up. Plus technologies, a bunch of different technologies out there, and it's constantly changing. So you have to be constantly learning. You can't be stagnant. If you're somebody that really don't want to learn or don't want to further your education around your field, engineering is going to be very tough because you will the technology will outdate you.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, are there internships or on-the-job training programs available for students?
Yes, yes, yes. So there are internships that are available. We usually hire them. Like right now, should be an internship posting going up on our bg.com website, and then they start for next summer. From a on the job training perspective, once we bring you on the job, as a full-time employee, you will go through a training program because college only prepares you for the basis of what you have. You have to learn the actual task, so we'll help you with that one. From a blue collar worker, right? Like I said, from a technician place, we do have OJT programs and internships for those as well.
I see. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciated your view, and you have a very cool career.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are you in touch? Visit mystemcity.com and join the In Touch community. We have our own social media sharing app, and we want you to join so you can stay in touch with the latest STEM City USA news, BEYA events, exciting activities with our STEM City USA partners, and career activities. Visit mystemcity.com and join today. Now, on to Moria. Thank you for all who have joined us for Career Day. Thank you to our Career Day speakers, Ms. Krystle McClain and Mr. Larry Laws, for joining us today. Remember to visit mystemcityusa.com for more BEYA STEM Career Day segments. We would like to give a very special thanks to our BEYA STEM Career Day sponsor, Lockheed Martin. They are known for their groundbreaking work in aerospace, arms, defense, information security, and technology around the world. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us for the next Career Day on October 14th, 2023. See you guys next time.
Every day at Lockheed Martin, we are creating the future. When did I decide to become an engineer? Where I grew up in my village, we had a lot of interaction with nature. So I was always fascinated by the flight of the hummingbird. Seeing this marvelous aerodynamics of the hummingbird gave me this general idea that I wanted to be working on the ability to control things that flew. I've had this long running curiosity, I still do today, of asking the question, why is this the way it is? Are there ways to improve what it does? And in fact, those are the same questions we ask every day at Lockheed Martin. That's why my colleagues come to work saying, this is great, we've done all these great things, we've built all these great systems, how could we make it better? And how could we make it better together? Lockheed Martin's engineers and scientists are at the forefront of innovation. Everything from AI and machine learning to hypersonics to directed energy. Individually, all these are really critical capabilities that we need to develop. To actually deliver something ahead of ready to our customers, it takes pulling these pieces together into an overall mission capability. What we are doing here matters to our nation, to our nation's security.